Okay, so this game was another Guimard Tarrasch French. I faced the same guy I played a couple of games ago. I improved a bit on my opening play, but if you play e4 or if you play the French, this should be extremely instructive in terms of pawn breaks in the French. I know it was for me. Let me know what you think. And let me know what you play against this knight c6 weird stuff, because I'm not too familiar with it. Thank you. Bye. Let's go to the game.
Hi everyone, Stepan here. Playing game 82. I won my last game. I've beaten this guy once, joined a month ago. Alright. Wants to play the French, let's allow the French. Is this the guy that played the Guimard? Maybe it's the same guy. I don't remember. We will see. So I played knight e2 and they went knight c6. If that's the same guy, I'm not going to repeat the mistake of playing a3 again. Yes, it is the same guy. So the move is bishop e2. The move is bishop e2. I know. Now I know. Because I want my bishop on e2 anyway. In the last game, I played a3. Okay. So, in the last game, it was not correct to take on f6. But maybe things have changed now. I still feel like taking is correct. I'm gonna take. Because I don't... Okay, he's thinking again. No, maybe it wasn't correct to take. I know that I played a3 because I wanted to go bishop d3 in the last game. And I know that bishop e2 was correct instead. So that's an improvement. But... Okay, we're playing the Guimard again. I took... Why is my opponent thinking? Maybe I made a mistake again. What am I supposed to do against f6? Not take? Very confusing. Should I go knight b3? Maybe knight b3 is a move. If I do go knight b3, then e5, bishop g5 is definitely on the cards and the d pawn is hanging. But if I go knight b3, couldn't my opponent go a5, a4? In the last game I played c3, either here or in a very similar position. And my opponent went bishop d6 instead of e5. So I'm gonna try knight b3 here. I'm gonna try. I don't know whether this works or not, but I like the idea of, since the knight is on c6, if e5 happens, then there will be pressure on d5. Okay, so let's castle. Do I throw in bishop g5? I don't think so. Let's castle. Because e5 hangs the d pawn now. Now I could try bishop g5 and I could get my bishop to g3. So bishop g5. If queen g6, I have bishop d3. Maybe. Bishop g5 seems interesting. Bishop g5, queen f7, I guess. Or queen f5. And then maybe bishop h4. Okay, I'm gonna try bishop g5, because why wouldn't I develop a piece for free? Am I hanging anything? I don't think so. Okay, queen f7, there's no threat to take, but there is a threat to go e5, because the bishop now defends, the queen, sorry, defends d5. So e5 takes. So do I go c4? c4 seems very tempting. Because that does prevent e5. c4 takes, bishop takes. Seems fine. Okay, I'm going c4. It seems aggressive, but I like it. It's not that I like it, even though it's aggressive and I like it. I just cannot give my opponent time to play e5 for free. Maybe c4 is completely incorrect, I don't know, but it seems interesting. Because the center cannot be supported. There's a knight on c6. Yeah, and if black doesn't play e5, what does black actually do? Maybe knight f6, defending the d-pawn, but then surely I can go c5, and I'm preventing e5, because I can go bishop f4, bishop h4, followed by knight e5. There is knight e4 though. Knight f6, knight e4 is slightly annoying, but okay, I like my position. I like my position. The last game I had a bad position, but I managed to win. This time I like my position. Maybe my opponent's calculating queen h5. Maybe it does work. Queen h5 seems pretty scary, to be honest. What do I even do? Is queen h5 just winning? Okay, maybe queen h5 was just winning. I'm not sure. I got very scared there. Maybe it still works. Maybe queen h5 still works. What do I do? Let's say bishop e2, queen h5. The threat is rook f3, bishop f3, queen g5, or rook f3, bishop f3, queen h2 mate. Maybe I'm just losing. I mean, I have h4, that's sort of the last resort, but it seems incredibly dangerous. Okay, I will definitely have to save my bishop. I have to save my bishop. So, do I go bishop d3 or bishop e2? Let's say bishop. Let's say bishop e2, so that on queen h5 I have h4 and a discovery with the knight. What do I do against queen h4? I think h4 is my only move. Queen h5, h4. Then I'm threatening knight e5. Okay, he didn't play that. Okay. Oof. Oof. Wants to play knight f4. Wants to play knight f4. I definitely have to defend against queen h5. So bishop h4, knight f4, bishop g3, knight e2 check, queen e2. Okay, I have to save my bishop. I don't see anything else viable. We're gonna have a look at queen h5. I think h4 was my only move to save the game. Maybe I'm missing something, but I doubt it. If knight f4, can I get away with bishop c4? Knight f4, bishop c4. Knight g2, king g2. Seems scary. I think I'm just gonna give up my bishop. I'm gonna go bishop g3. So knight f4, bishop c4. Knight g2, king g2. Queen g6, bishop g3. I don't think knight g2 works, but it's always scary. Bishop g5 was a very bad move. I mean, but if I don't play bishop g5, what do I do? How am I supposed to develop? I need to learn this Guimard French. I don't think I've ever faced it in a serious game. Knight f4 makes a ton of sense. I don't see why my opponent isn't playing knight f4. Okay. Yeah. Now I'm much happier. Because now there's no knight g2. On knight f4 I can just go bishop c4. And if we trade, knight f4 isn't even possible. I think my opponent misplayed this. I think they may have had a win. h6 is definitely passive, and knight d5 is... Or sorry, taking on c4 is definitely a missed opportunity, unless I had h4 against queen h5. But I just couldn't make it work. And when you get the bishop to the h2 b8 diagonal in the Tarrasch French, or any French after f6, it supports e5, so it fights against e5. So that's the dream diagonal. In many lines of the Tarrasch French, you actually go bishop f4 and risk having a hard position to play in order to prevent e5. So now I'm just e5 isn't happening, and if e5 doesn't happen, then the bishop on c8 is bad, therefore the rook on a8 is bad. And the usual compensation for stuff like this is black sacking an exchange on f3 and getting an attack with knight f4, but the queen's on f7, so that isn't happening either. So, okay, so now I was thinking bishop c4. But if bishop c4, is there knight h3 check? gh3, queen f3, rook f3. There is, but I don't have to take. I can go king h1. So bishop c4, knight h3, king h1. Bishop c4, knight h3, king h1. e5 doesn't work. Okay, I'm playing bishop c4. I'm not afraid of knight h3. If knight g2, king g2, that also seems fine. Oh, maybe knight h3, king h1, queen h5? No, but I still don't have to take. Okay, so my opponent isn't playing for e5. That's very good to know. Can I go knight e5 now? I can go knight e5 or I can go rook e1. I like knight e5. Because now my knight isn't hanging after knight g2, and the bishop on c8 is clearly not a good piece. Takes? Weird. Okay. Okay. So now I can go queen g4. Queen g4, bishop b7, and bishop takes f4. On queen g4, okay, I think I'm overwhelming the e-pawn. So queen g4, what does my opponent do? Because I also have knight d4 coming. Queen g4. I think I'll just go queen g4. Why not? On knight f5, I take the knight. I don't think my opponent can afford to lose the e-pawn. On bishop b7, I just take on f4 and take on e6. Yeah, okay, I mean, I'm pretty sure my opponent had a very good position, but they misplayed it. Now I just have a bishop pair, I have a fixed target, I have a safer king. My knight on b3 is offside, but it's coming to d4. Okay, so now the question is, do I go knight d4 immediately? Knight d4, bishop b7. Bishop takes f4. Knight takes f4. Doesn't work. But I could go rook d1 first. Rook d1, bishop b7. Knight d4. Oh, I also have rook d4. Okay, I'm playing rook d1. Rook a d1. Okay, so do I go rook d4 or knight d4? Rook d4, I'm threatening to take on f4 and well, it sacks the exchange, so it may not be the best idea. On knight d4, I'm definitely threatening to take on e6, so I'm gonna go knight d4. And I'm also covering the e2 square. g2 is hanging, but the knight would have to move first, and if the knight moves, I can just take on e6. And if knight g2 now, I just go knight e6, I think. I mean, I'm just breaking through on e6. Even rook a e8 doesn't really work. I don't see how you prevent bishop f4. I mean, probably h5 does the job, but because it dislodges my queen. So now I'm threatening knight e6. If queen e6, knight e6, bishop d5, I'm up a pawn. If knight e6, knight e6, then bishop d5, or even rook d5. So the only move I can see is h5 or rook a e8 to defend. But even so, couldn't I just take on f4 and take on e6? Okay, let's look at it. So if I take on f4 now, my opponent takes with the queen. And then if I trade, I don't have g3 because there is knight h3 check. So how do I increase the pressure? How do I increase the pressure? If bishop f4, knight f4, then that still doesn't work. I think. Okay, for now I'm gonna go rook e1. It's a waiting move that develops a piece, defends e5, gives my king some luft in the event of knight h3 check. At least I'm not getting mated and I have a square. So maybe some variations will start working. Also, I have the idea to go rook e4 and overwhelm the knight. And I'm fighting against knight e2 once more. I think this is a big mistake. Because I have knight b5, knight d6. Yeah, my knight's coming into d6. I'm not even going to think about this. A knight on d6 would be a monster piece. And bishop a6 doesn't work because I gain a tempo on the queen and actually win a piece. c5 is a very, very reckless move. Okay, I'm gonna trade queens and go knight d6. And I think I'm close to winning. If rook takes, I just win. Okay, this makes no sense. Why did my opponent play c5? The game was so interesting. Okay, now I win even more. I win a whole knight because I can just take and this knight is pinned. Okay, this is over. My opponent just collapsed for no reason. Very, very strange capitulation. Why? The knight's hanging. This knight is pinned. There's a bishop on c4. So if you take on f5, I just take on f4. Okay. Let's just save my knight, I guess. Okay. It was a very interesting game until c5. Okay, let's analyze. Let's see. So the first point I'm interested in is after f6. Okay, I am supposed to take. Okay, fine. Queen f6. Knight f1. Oh, that makes way more sense. Okay, now I know for next time. You don't play knight b3. But knight b3 has been tried. Bishop d6 castles, castles. Bishop g5 has been played twice. Queen f7 has never been played. Let's see. c4 is good. Bishop h4 is good. But wait, on c4 is there no queen h5? Wait a minute. c4, what about queen h5? Wait, what? Okay, h4 is a move. How is bishop e3 a move? Don't you just take on f3? Ah, the rook is pinned to the queen. I'm stupid. I can just go h3 and the rook is still hanging. The only thing I was thinking about is, well, what if I take and then I get mated? Okay. c4, dc4, bishop c4. Still queen h5. I'm guessing I would have gone h4. Oh, no. Queen h5 isn't hanging now because you have to defend the pawn. So after knight b6, bishop e2, now queen h5. Bishop h4. Okay, rook takes. And again, the rook is hanging. I completely missed the fact that I can just do nothing and the rook is pinned to the queen. Okay. Finally saved my bishop. Knight f4, bishop c4. Apparently it's equal. Knight e5 is a mistake. Queen g4 is equal. Rook d1. Black is slightly better. It seemed like I was going to overwhelm black's position. Oh. Oh ho ho ho. Yeah, I couldn't take. Yeah, and then my position is just collapsing. I saw knight g2. I kept saying knight g2. Okay, knight c5. Yeah, now it's great. Now my position is just amazing. Knight d6 just wins everything. Just winning. I just take a full rook, and if the knight's taken, I take a full knight. Yeah. Okay, I mean, my opponent collapsed pretty quickly. 90% accuracy? Yeah, great, except that I hung the game in one move. This doesn't really make too much sense. If I make one game losing blunder and the position is plus, what was it? -2. Oh, sorry, I didn't expand this. Sorry, I keep increasing the thing so that you guys can see, but I forgot to. Okay, let me do it like this. So now you can see the engine evaluation. So after rook fe1, it was -2.8. And after c5, it was plus 0.8. And then my opponent played queen f5 and blundered. This is just allowing knight d6 in any variation. I mean, even if you don't play queen f5, I think I'm still much better. Wait, I don't go knight d6? Oh, there's still knight g2. Okay, so I have to take. And if bishop takes, I win a piece. So knight takes, and now I go knight d6. Yeah. And I mean, this is strategically so much better for me. Yeah. Okay, not a clean game, but we learned something about the Guimard French once again. Thank you for watching. See you in the next one. Bye-bye.